Hello, and thank you to everyone who has joined us today for our final book club session. I'm Rachel Strober with Pearson. Just to share a few note-keeping items as we get started. We are recording this session, so if you do not wish to be recorded, you can feel free to keep your webcam off. And although we do encourage you to participate and share in the discussion, we do ask that while you're not speaking, you keep yourselves on mute. Um, Again, because this is our book club session and we want you to be able to share your thoughts, you can feel free to participate by using the chat or Q&A feature. Or if you'd like to raise your hand, you can certainly raise your hand and come off mute and join in on the conversation. Captions have been enabled and you can turn them on and off using the Zoom control panels at the bottom of your screen if you'd like to. And so, with that said, I'm very excited to introduce you to our two book club hosts today, Richard Johnson Sheehan and Charles Paine. Rick is a professor of rhetoric and professional writing at Purdue University. He has written numerous books, including Technical Communication Today, Writing Proposals, Writing Today, Argument Today, and Strategies for Technical Communication Today. Chuck is a professor of English at the University of New Mexico, where he directs the core writing and rhetoric programs. His published books span a variety of topics in rhetoric and composition, including writing today, uh, teaching with student texts, and argument today. Rick, Chuck, thank you so much for being here. I'm very excited to be joining in on our discussion today of Brave New Worlds, how AI will revolutionize education and why that's a good thing. I will hand it over to you now.
Okay, well, thanks for the introduction, Rachel. I'm going to kick this off with a question for Rick. So, Rick, can you say a few words about Salman Khan's argument in the book and why you thought it would be interesting to college writing instructors?
Yeah, no, it's fine. Yeah, it's always great to talk about teaching writing. So, especially as we're warming up for the next semester. Yeah, I think I saw this book kind of circulating a bit. Bill Gates was talking about it, and it was getting on his summer reading list. And I mean, we all know who Salman Khan is, I guess. He's the founder of the Khan Academy, and so I know that my children and we were using the Khan Academy quite a bit for things like math and science and even some writing kind of topics. And Khan's been a real thought leader as far as using computers and using different ways of doing tutoring and mentoring and things like that. So it's been a very useful tool. So I was curious about the book and what he had to say about it. Now, in this case, he's mostly talking about kindergarten through K through 12. So that puts an interesting spin on this. But he's talking a lot about the transformational potential of AI in education, and I think they're kind of relevant to us as people who teach writing at the college level. And I think there's lots of things we can come out of this with. So, it's not a large stretch to take a lot of con strategies and use them at the college level. And it's pretty much a natural fit in a lot of ways. People, AI, ooh, magic and stuff like that, but it really is a very much a writing-based kind of medium. So it fits pretty well into what we do. And so all these different tools like ChatGPT, Copilot, Claude, Llama, this is pretty much in our domain in a lot of ways. And I think he picks up on that. Now, Khan's definitely an AI optimist. Okay. I mean, he's a cheerleader for sure. And I agree with a lot of what he has to say and the benefits of AI in education. That said, I'm also, I also want to recognize that this seems to be a highly disruptive technology to our field, potentially the most disruptive in our lifetime. So it's kind of going to be one of those kind of scary moments. We're going to have to kind of figure out how to deal with this. But I think there are ways to add into our teaching in a constructive way. So he does talk about several topics, the role of AI in education, that's helpful. Talks about a concept called educated bravery or education bravery that Chuck and I will talk about a little bit later. Kind of what the future of learning is now that AI is kind of out of the bottle, and and we're not going to get it back in there. So he talks a lot about what learning is going to look like in the future, ethics and responsibility about what are the ethical implications of integrating AI in the classes, in our classes, and education in general, and then empowering through knowledge. He has a lot of positive things to say about empowerment of our students. And then how we can get into human AI collaboration kind of relationships in a way. And we'll talk a little bit more about that, I'm sure. So, yeah, so that's
Yeah,
kind of the start.
yeah. So I'd sort of follow up to that question. I know I am. We're all thinking about fall 2024 and getting ready. So why the book at this time?
Yeah, I think we're all finally getting past that initial amazement by what like ChatGPT and Copilot and all these things can do, and hopefully we'll be getting down past the moral panic about using generative AI in college education. It's kind of funny as ChatGPT came out about a year and a half ago, and people kind of freaked out. Okay, some people did, I should say. It doesn't help that these technology boosters and technology doomers are out there saying a year from now everything in our world's going to be different, completely different. We'll all lose our jobs, things like that. It's like, well, none of that's really happened. It is changing things, though. I think it's very important. And that's on a more practical level. A lot of us are now getting used to thinking about ways we can, use AI in the upcoming semester. Khan does a nice job of talking about how to bring writing, this kind of AI into our writing classrooms and how we should deal with things like academic dishonesty and what we need to do to prepare students kind of for their advanced college courses, writing in their advanced college courses and even their careers after college. Yeah, so now I get to turn the tables and ask Chuck a questions. One issue is about preparing students about their careers after college. And yeah, can you tell us more about that? I mean, what is how does Salman Khan's very optimistic book help us talk about kind of preparing students for their careers and also how to deal with academic dishonesty?
Well, I'll just, yeah. Well, okay. Those two issues. I'll say first, that both students and employers want us to make AI part of the undergraduate education. They're in Inside Higher Ed reported on a survey of 974 students from 4 and 2 year schools, and overwhelmingly they said that they thought that AI should become part of their college careers. Likewise, employers say that when they're hiring new college graduates, they expect them or they prefer students who have experience with AI, who can deal with AI, and the more experience, the better. And then that second issue is about academic dishonesty, and the question there is where do we set the limits, or another way to put it is like what will count as academic dishonesty. And to be honest, Khan, he doesn't give us a recipe. He takes the approach that I think both Rick and I do, which is we're going to have to figure this out. So the question is what is for your course? These are the questions you have to ask yourself. What will you say counts as academic dishonesty? We say absolutely no AI at any point in the writing process, or well, can they use it as a grammar and spell checker, or maybe a style checker, or maybe a fact checker? Can they use it to brainstorm ideas, or is it okay to have AI look over a rough draft? Each one of us is going to have to figure out, and I think where the line is, and the line's going to change. Where do we draw that line? How do we communicate that with students? Those are hard. And again, he doesn't offer us a simple answer, but I do think he might have admitted as much if you have my opinion. And so, but this is something we have to figure out. I think it's something both Rick and I agree on, right?
Yeah, no, I think that's absolutely true. I mean, I think he's optimistic, but I don't know if he's if he's this isn't the end all and be all. He's taking more of an exploratory approach to it. So, I
Yeah.
mean, yeah. So,
So what does Khan say about these two issues? I know he's very optimistic, but what does he say about these two issues of honesty and dishonesty?
Yeah, that's good. I mean,
Yeah, but yeah.
yeah, I mean, he talks a lot about trusting students, which I know some people are going to be like, "Well, you're going to trust students to use this technology, aren't you know?" And I think he's got a good point there. I mean, I do think that, it's not like cheating something new. I mean, plagiarism's been around for a long time. And I think there's ways of doing it. I think most students want to do things right. I've been actually, as we're looking towards the next semester, I've been thinking, well, what's a good way of kind of dealing with students doing their own work and things like that. I've been thinking of some strategies. I don't know, Chuck, I know you have too, but and that's what Khan's book is pretty good at. He's kind of giving us some strategies for getting students to interact with the technology in an interactive way. He specifically kind of talks about doing that in the classroom. He's a proponent of flipping the classroom in a lot of ways, and using AI in the classroom actually gets students working on their texts and getting into an interactive conversation with AI in that way. I usually joke that, students are always, a lot of students who are looking for that golden prompt that will generate the entire paper for them, and they don't have to do a lot of work and get it in there. But we all know those kinds of, like they'll write something like write a 1,000 word cause and effect paper that explores why homelessness has become a major issue in America today. And we all know that the results of that's usually pretty flat and not particularly interesting. AI is pretty good at synthesizing what's known and presenting, pretty formulaic 5 paragraph paper, but that's not really what advanced courses are asking them to do, or definitely their careers. It doesn't help. That might be helpful for generating some ideas and stuff like that, but that's not the kind of deeper understanding of the topic we're hoping students come up with. I mean, that's kind of, I mean, I think that's one way of kind of getting those students doing those things in class. I usually try and keep an active classroom anyway, because I think that the more I can get the students writing inside the class, the more I can get them further along with their paper. I usually think a lot of cheating and plagiarism happens because, frankly, students get panicky. It's due tomorrow or it's due later today, and they're just trying to generate, any text. This is even before AI, and they end up doing some things that are let's say cheating oriented or less academically dishonest. I don't know. What do you think, Chuck? I mean, what are some solutions you've come up with?
Well, I think the main point is that I think both you and I agree on, is that our students and us professors, to prepare ourselves for education and life, need to get experience writing good prompts. And when we get the results from those prompts, separating the good ideas from the bad one, because we all know that AI will come up with some really bad ideas and just some plain false knowledge. And so it's an iterative process that I try to model in my classroom and ask students to engage with, usually in groups at various times during the semester. And you and I would talk about 3 metaphors, and there's an overlap between these ideas. That AI is a one-on-one tutor for helping students invent ideas and explore in their writing. As a TA or colleague to help us teachers develop ideas for lesson plans. And then Khan talks about these first two, but not this last one, as a colleague in the workplace. And so that first metaphor for students, helping students with invention, or you might think about if you had a TA who could work independently with students or whatever. Again, the same can be said of in-class invention work. So a few examples that just from this last academic year. A student used AI, this first year writing student, to better understand a genre and also to gain some insights about her audience. So she was writing a proposal to the dean of students about offering feminine hygiene products at various places throughout the university. And so she wanted to get into the mindset of the dean, and also figure out what questions people have when they see a proposal genre. So she asked ChatGPT to take the role of the dean and explained what she was doing. So in sort of a Socratic process back and forth, and it really helped her figure out like what a proposal needs to do and what it needs to do in this situation. Okay, and then in an intermediate composition class. It was titled Using Metaphors and Other Tropes for Explaining the Unexplainable in Science and the Humanities. There was a physics major who wanted to talk about the metaphor of the atom, and how we represent the structure as a solar system, which is a complete lie because it doesn't look like that. It doesn't look like anything. And so he engaged. He engaged in Socratic dialogue with Werner Heisenberg, you know, the physicist who came up with the idea for quantum physics. Rick knows more about this than I do. A biology student who wanted to engage with Richard Dawkins about the trope of selfishness for the selfish gene, and that was really helpful. I was really impressed. So, in other words, teach your students to give AI a role: editor, mentor, celebrate a scholar, final decision maker, whatever. And whatever, give it a role, ask you to engage with you in a specific way, and you have this chat going on back and forth. And one more thing I allow my students to do, as long as they share what they've done with me, is to ask AI for feedback on a draft. Now, I don't think everybody, would want students to do this, but, a prompt I can think of from last year was, do you have ideas for making this draft of a restaurant review more fun, breezy, and up-tempo so it's suitable for a college newspaper? Okay, and so the thing is, because I require reflection for every assignment, the student wrote in her reflection about the process and what she learned from doing it, and it worked out well. And I had one more example. Oh, here's an example. I had a senior who wrote as skillfully as an advanced graduate student. She was amazing. She really had mastered scientific prose and of being a professor. But she had to write something to the parents of children to get permission, informed consent for them to participate in the study. So she had to translate her work into fifth grade literacy. She had a hard time doing that, and so she asked for ChatGPT for some ideas, and it came up with some really good ideas. And again, I won't talk too much about TAs for us, but there's creating a lesson plan. I use it for helping me come up with better ideas for assignment prompts and things like that. But the overall goal is students and professors just need to dive in, get experience with writing good prompts, and engaging in that iterative process. But I want to ask Rick, before we turn it over to questions about the AI in the workplace of the college, but I also want to ask you about what you're doing at Purdue with a large format composition class. Yeah, what's going on at Purdue? What are you guys doing? It sounds very interesting.
Going in kicking and screaming, but no, we've been getting pressure to teach a little bit larger format classes. Our classes are usually capped at 20, but we're getting a lot of pressure. Can't you guys teach more students? And so we've been developing one of the other professors and I've been developing a course that we're going to have two professors and two TAs in for 75 students. We're going to try and do this and kind of build AI into this in a way that allows them to get more tutoring through AI for like the lower order kind of items, grammar, style, or plain style, let's say, punctuation, of course, kind of get it at that. And then that allows us to concentrate at the higher order stuff, the more creative work that's involved, and the more picking good angles, kind of anticipating the audience and stuff like that. So we've been thinking a lot about that. We'll see if we're successful. It could be a crash and burn kind of situation, but I don't know. We're optimistic. We think that maybe AI can take some of that low order stuff out of the discussion and let students kind of, I don't know. We're hoping that it's going to we'll be spending a lot less time doing low order stuff so we can really work on invention, being creative, coming up with a good voice, things like that. So that's some of the things that we're doing. Just as kind of an overall statement, since we're going to hand it over to questions here in a moment, I do think that getting into interactive relationships with AI is going to be kind of the future in a lot of ways. because just for advanced college courses and students' careers, they're when they're not career students anymore, when they're actually working at companies or for the government or whatever, they're just going to have to learn how to get into interactive relationships with AI to generate ideas and actually ask questions of AI and come back. And that's what Salman Khan talks a lot about how they have a product at Khan Academy called Khan Mingo that he's kind of promoting here that allows this to happen at the K through 12. I'm hoping they'll create something at the college level too that allows our students to kind of get into these interactive question and answer kinds of relationships with AI so they can explore ideas. Khan talks a lot about meeting students at the leading edge of their learning. In other words, students that are pretty advanced can kind of move quicker through the subject matter information, and then students who are struggling a little bit or maybe trying to catch up with the other students, the AI can recognize that and then kind of give them things that fit their needs and kind of bring them up. He cites um, Bloom's research on tutoring and the importance of tutoring, showing that there's a 46% increase if somebody's actually using a tutor. Well, we can't all afford tutors, and we don't have the writing lab, ability to have tutors for everyone. But maybe AI can get into these tutoring relationships that help people accelerate their learning, help students accelerate their learning, so the teacher can kind of concentrate on some other things. So. I know, Chuck, do you have a last comment on that before we open up for questions or?
Well, I think, that the way you and I are handling it, and I think this resonates with Khan, is just like dive in. And if you can't dive in, then lean in on this and, work with students to develop practices and policies. And one of his main points is trust students. And I just think you have to do that because I'm still figuring this stuff out, and I will be till I retire, I think, you know. So, this is where we are, and it is a reality. So, dive in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
right. Well, that was great. I really appreciated the discussion so far. Um, Before we close out, we did want to open it up to any questions or comments from any of you that have joined. So now would be the time. You can come off of mute and just speak up, or you can enter your question in the chat, and I'll be watching for those too. And I'm also curious, since Khan didn't really provide an answer for where to draw the line, if anyone on the call has already incorporated AI into their classroom, and if you're willing to share, what you think the line should be in terms of what's acceptable use.
Yeah, I'm still figuring out where to draw the line. Um,
Well, I do
Rick.
have a comment here. I mean, while people are thinking of something, Chuck and I were talking about, well, how do you kind of talk about the student's responsibility with the use of technology? And we think a good way to start, I think, I mean, Chuck, I'll try and characterize our conversation is to actually make that kind of the first week of class, talk to the
Mm.
students. What do they think is fair? What looks like cheating to them? What looks like plagiarism in this case? And actually have that conversation with them. They've been using, whether you like it or not, AI for, they've already been using it quite a bit. They know actually what they're doing. They probably have a pretty good sense of what the lines are, where they think they're treading over into areas that, this is not a ethical use of this technology. And it'd be interesting to kind of have them sort out what those policies are going to be and, then kind of hold them to it. I'd actually, I know that the first week we're going to be working in both of my classes. We're going to come up with what are some policies that I'm going to hold them to as far as how to use AI and what's an ethical use of AI.
Well, while you were sharing that, Rick, we did
Oh,
have a few comments pop up in the chat. I don't know if Susan or Margaret, you want to come off mute. Otherwise, I can read the
Mm.
messages. But Susan said that she's found it really useful for generating keywords that can be used in database searches on the library site, which is often a big challenge for students,
Hmm.
which is great.
Interesting.
Um, oh, and Margaret, you're posting from, I guess, your current syllabus. Generative artificial intelligence is a hugely changing and controversial topic. My use of it so far has shown me it can be extremely helpful tool for research and for draft writing. However, in this class, part of the learning process is drafting papers. So using AI as part of the drafting process will be covered in class, but it is not acceptable to use AI to create drafts for graded results.
So actually, I have a question about that. So, and I too would have a real problem if students were saying, AI, create a first draft for me, right? And then I'll go back. I mean, because I think any of us, well, any of us, but except Rick Johnson Sheehan, would have a hard, would have a hard time, like saying, no, that's not the structure I wanted. You know, we would be sort of fixed on that structure. I do allow AI for brainstorming, and I don't know if Margaret meant that she doesn't use it for brainstorming or just not to do what I said. It was like, okay, create a first draft for me, and that would be a line for me. What do your thoughts, Rick?
Well, I'm curious what Margaret thinks. What do you think,
Yeah,
Margaret?
I am very curious too.
I wasn't sure if you were asking me or Rick.
Yeah.
I put this in my syllabus last year, and the line that says we are going to explore the use of AI, we didn't really do a very good job of that. And I guess I'm really saying I didn't do a very good job of that. We discussed the fact that it exists. And I think we had a couple of class sessions where it was writing time for them. And I'm not that familiar with it. And so I probably learned as much as a lot of them did during those class sessions. I personally think it's fine to brainstorm, but I'm just very leery of saying, sure, just turn it over for the first draft. And I think most of my colleagues are in that same, we want to use it. We're not Luddites, but we're not sure where the lines are, just as you articulated. And I don't think we're going to get there in the next year or so.
What I feel like diving in is like, if I don't know what a grammatical construction, what the name of it is or something, that's kind of embarrassing because I'm supposed to know that, right? On the other hand, but if I don't know something about AI, I don't feel embarrassed at all because I just don't know, and I'm working with the students. So I'm gonna do far more of this coming semester, is having them use AI in the classroom, modeling what works, sharing tips and tricks and strategies. That's
But I like it that Margaret, that you're exploring that line there. I mean, I think that's a good conversation to get into with students. Ask them, is drafting a paper with AI, is that a good use of this? I'll bet you the majority of them say no. That's crossing the line.
I'm gonna jump in and just say this past year we switched from quarters to semesters. And everyone who'd been teaching there for more than a few years was kind of freaked out about the fact that we weren't done in 10 weeks. We had to go for another 5. But I did have students who did state that they were glad that I at least mentioned it. I've got colleagues who are like, we shall, it's like Voldemort, the name that shall not be stated. And I mean, ignoring that it exists just didn't seem to make much sense.
Yeah. I'll admit it. This period feels a lot like, and I know I'm dating myself here, when the internet first came out. It's like, no, you cannot use the internet. And Chuck and I have collected video clips of people on Good Morning America, talking about, oh, I don't know why anyone would ever use this. It's almost funny. Bill Gates, look, a much younger Bill Gates is on there talking about the internet. And they're like, I don't get it. What is that? And now we can't imagine writing without the internet.
Yeah, can I just say one thing about plagiarism checkers and AI checkers? They have too many false positives. I mean, I've learned from my students who are graduate students and told me that they were accused of this, and I believe them when they say it's that they didn't use it, and the thing is, it's just going to be an arms race between the AI developers and the plagiarism checkers, and I don't want to be involved in that arms race personally. Instead, I want to trust students. And if somebody burns me, well, they burn me.
Yeah. I think if I can go back to the book, I think Kahn has some good strategies for this, like teach students how to get into these interactive relationships so they're not just trying to put in that golden prompt that I joke about that's going to have that fully formed, essay or proposal or whatever they're doing, but actually, show them how to use the technology properly to get into the question and answer kind of relationship that will get them there. Does that mean some students aren't going to try it out? Sure they are. But I got to admit, I feel like I've got a pretty good eye for AI at this point.
Oh yeah.
It's usually pretty synthetic, usually it has that, I'm going to say it, bullshitty kind of voice. I mean, it's just, now maybe I'm wrong, maybe everyone's conning me, but the truth of the matter is I think I'm a sensitive enough reader to notice that it just doesn't, something sounds off.
Yeah.
And usually I tell people, well, if you really want to know, the old fashioned way 30 years ago, we asked, we kind of detected plagiarism because we didn't have ways of searching for the text. And you'd be like, well, Jimmy, why don't you tell me what the word ontological means? It's like, because you use it right here in your paper, they'd be like, okay, I cheated. It's like, yeah, that's right. I kind of knew that. You can ask them questions about their ideas and words they've used and detect when it's not their work. And I've done that, it's fine. I mean, it's the old way of detecting plagiarism, and students that aren't doing their own work. So, but I think Khan has some nice strategies for kind of how to teach students how to use this technology properly. So,
Yeah.
all right.
Well, I think we are at time, maybe just a little bit over, but I think this was a great discussion. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. We really appreciate your participation. If you are interested in receiving a copy of any of Rick and Chuck's titles with us, Writing Today, Argument Today, or Technical Communication Today, you can feel free to reach out to your Pearson representative or just reply back to your registration confirmation email, and that will go to my event partner who will get it to me, and we'd be happy to send you a copy. But thank you everyone for joining, and enjoy the rest of your afternoon.